Becoming a DJ at 32 years old, like, are people like looking at me like, what
is she okay?
Yeah. Like, what is she doing?
On today's episode, I'm joined by content creator turned DJ, Freddie, also known as Mini Skrrt.
Your audience was your audience because of your music and your craft, not because they knew what your personality was.
Right.
And now people crave to know what your personality is like.
We dive into topics like expressing yourself through music and fashion, finding your own path, and making a pivot in your creative career.
Don't be afraid of being humbled. What else are we here for if not to just figure out our full potential?
Welcome to Create.Repeat.
Voices in my head telling me it's now or never. Just turned 31, I can't deny the pressure. Even at my best, I know that I can do better. Running out of time, but how the hell can you measure?
Thinking like that's the sickest name I've ever heard, but you already had a really cool, like, where did that, I guess let's just start. Welcome to the Create.Repeat podcast. This is Freddie. Her DJ name, though, you might know her as Mini Skrrt. Skrrt.
Yes.
Can I do that?
Yes.
Yeah, so you are this person that I've known. Just for a backstory, we were both video producers at a little place called BuzzFeed like 10 years ago now.
10 years ago.
Isn't that crazy?
I can't believe it.
We met 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember, it's so funny because you walked in wearing this Allen Iverson jersey. And the first time I remember meeting you, I think you were in a Tracy McGrady jersey or something.
Yeah, it was Orlando.
And I'm like, I need to talk to this girl. Who are you? And I remember you telling me how you like thrifting.
Yeah.
And I think you were out by Azusa at the time. And that's where I was just coming from.
Yes.
And I put you on to this thrift store.
You
I remember telling you like, hey,
did.
this place has the best jerseys.
I totally forgot that you like were from the area or knew of the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. You went to school out there. That's
I
what
went
it was.
to school out there.
Yeah.
And I used to make money in college by going to that thrift store. And I would find people that I knew, you know, or someone like would be from Philly. I would go and find the Sixers jersey and then go sell it to them.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was my job.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I would love for you to circle back to that.
Yeah, definitely.
In 2024.
That's why I was a little frustrated when Macklemore became popular because he did this whole thrift store thing. Plus, we had the same haircut. I had it before I saw him, I swer.
You were like, I've been doing this.
Yeah,
I've been on this.
I'm on it. And then when people started turning on him, I'm like, wait, well, he's not that bad. Because I just felt like it was me, my entire identity.
Exactly.
So for our audience who might not know who you are, would you just care to explain, like, who are you? Who is Freddie? Who is Mini Skrrt?
Wow. Okay. So I'm Freddie. Freddie is, I would say, a content creator, a creative. Create.Repeat. I'm happy to be here. I am a music enthusiast, hence segueing my career into DJing and becoming Mini Skrrt, which is my DJ name. I've been DJing for 3 years. And I'm really just figuring out like my pockets within like the creative space and really leaning into the fact that I don't have to pick one.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's so hard. I mean, especially because, you know, you're a person who at BuzzFeed and through that time, you gained notoriety. You know, you have a bunch of followers on Instagram and everything. And I always think that's difficult to kind of rebrand yourself. How has that process been?
It's been weird. It's been really weird. I mean, somehow I still have a following. I'm like, I don't know how people still follow me or care, but I'm grateful and I'm really happy that they're kind of along with me on this ride. And it's cool to kind of see people encourage me and just say like, oh, Freddie, that's so cool that you're like DJing now, or like, you know, or even just, I miss seeing you. I miss your face because, you know, I will admit I don't post as much as I did 5-10 years ago. You know, I was, and also Instagram and social media space was a different space.
It was.
It was way less curated.
Yeah.
And so I was just on a posting spree anytime, posting my breakfast, just like in feed, no filters, no Visco app, like just raw dogging my feed. And now it's very much, I do put a lot of thought into like what I post. And because, you know, that's just the landscape. So, but it is cool that I still have people who are on my side and rooting for me.
That pressure to post, I went through that too. I mean, I went almost 4 years without really posting. I was just kind of out of the game. And I think, you know, you and I both have that unique experience of being a part of the machine of this content creation studio and having, we aren't the content creators, at least in the beginning. We aren't the type that you see now, which is very much like those self-starters. We were very much stamped by a company, and kind of, I always say it was closer to Disney Channel than
it really was.
than, doing your own thing, doing vlogs or anything. And I know we all tried that, but did you find like once we can talk a little bit more about BuzzFeed, but I am curious, like once you left and you started to become, it's just Freddie now, you're responsible for you. You're working with other places and stuff. What was that transition like for you, going from the big company to on your own?
Well, I do want to say BuzzFeed was so much fun.
It was.
I don't think that I would be where I am, even in the way that I think about content and creation and creativity. I don't think that I would have the same mindset that I do without working there. I say all the time that like I low-key learned more at BuzzFeed than I did in college.
100%.
Like just about how to just be so well-rounded, wear so many hats, be super hands-on with every aspect of the production process was like super invaluable. And so I'm grateful. I loved my time there. Leaving was something that felt like it was done at the right time. Like I don't think that I left too soon, and I don't think that I stayed too long.
Yeah.
I think that I was there for the perfect amount of time. And when I decided to leave, it was at the end of 2019.
What a great time.
What a great time. Like the timing was perfect. And I was like, oh yeah, the world is mine. Like I have management now. Like I had a team, I had an agent, like I had all of these things. Like I had started doing brand deals and stuff towards the tail end of my time at BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
But was still feeling like really stifled. And this was also during the time that like brands were just throwing money at influencers.
Right.
I mean,
it was the Wild West.
It was the Wild West. It was crazy. And I was like, oh, I could make way more money and just have way more autonomy, working for myself and not being a part of a big company that sort of has low-key had their foot on my neck, if you could say. Like really, there were stipulations. They had to approve what I was doing outside of the company. And I was just like, I was like, I know that I'm going somewhere, and I don't want basically the man telling me anymore where I can go. So I left. I started doing my brand deals, and then 2020 came, and then the pandemic and quarantine and all that happened. And I was like, because this was my first time ever not working at a company. I had never been freelance or anything like that. Like that was not my career aesthetic, I guess you could say. Like I'm very much like I like a stable paycheck, benefits, health insurance, all that. So I was nervous, but I felt good because I had a team and who was like working for me and helping me to like make moves. 2020 came. Honestly, it actually wasn't that bad because I was working for myself, and it wasn't like if I was a DJ at that time, that would have been really, really scary.
Yeah, you'd be doing like Zoom DJ
the Zoom
sessions.
DJ sessions.
Respect to everybody who did that.
Right. But I wasn't there yet. And so I will say, like, financially, it was a really good time for me, which is really, I know that it's a privilege to say that for 2020, because I know it wasn't like that for a lot of people. But it was financially a really good time because brands were just also, I feel like even more during that time, like influencing, and just everyone was on the internet. We didn't have shit else to do.
Yep.
So it felt good at that point. Let me know where you want me to stop, because the tides do change.
Yeah. As they do. Did you like go right from college to BuzzFeed? I don't know that.
No. So I went to Howard University in DC. I graduated, lived at home for 6 months after I graduated in 2012. I like bartended. Like I was
okay,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait, maybe I always was meant to be in the club.
I could see it.
Yeah,
I could see it.
yeah. So I bartended for a bit, and then I got accepted into the NBC Page program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's pretty much a postgraduate rotational program. It's at NBC Rockefeller Center in New York, and they also have an LA location. And so you have to like do multiple interviews. It's very competitive to get in. I think at the time it was like 60 people total in the program. And we would have it was a 1-year program. We would have little mini assignments throughout the company. So like, but you had to apply against the other pages to get the assignment. So every part of being in this program was just like competitive.
Yeah.
And so you could do like a PR assignment for Bravo for 3 months. I know I was a talent escort at SNL for 3 months.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. So I was like just escorting the talent every Saturday night and then working the after party.
So you had the greatest, all your friends are like doing these post-grad jobs. You're like,
and I was like, yeah, it was honestly a life-changing experience, but it was tough. We didn't get paid shit. Like it was like $12 an hour, living in New York City, working 6 to 7 days a week. Now, I didn't mention that when you weren't on assignment, we had to give studio tours, multiple a day. 7. So back to back, just giving people tours of the Today Show studio, SNL, Tonight Show studio.
I've been on that tour before.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, maybe it was you.
Yeah. And so it was cute at first, but then, when you're not on assignment and feeling like you're actually working towards something, it definitely felt a little stifling. And obviously the point of the program was to get a job after that. I ended up working at MSNBC after the program was done as an anchor PA. So I was working directly with all the anchors for daytime, so like Craig Melvin and Tamron Hall, and making sure they had all of their scripts. When breaking news happened, I had to write all their bullets out and make sure that it was like on point and accurate. Like if anything was wrong, like it was on the anchor PA.
Oh my gosh.
I'm getting chills thinking
pressure,
about it. It was scary.
You were thrown into it.
It was really scary. And during my downtime during that job is when I was watching BuzzFeed videos.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this might be more my vibe.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a personality? Because I imagine being in the Page program, working on those shows, like you're so close to it, but you are in a weird way so far at the same time. Like, is that something that you wanted to do, or? I
think yes. Like my dream job was to be an entertainment reporter for E!
I see it. Did I not? Earlier to Morgan, I was like, I feel like Freddie would have been so good on Girl Code on MTV.
Literally, yes. Like that was I really did want to be a personality in some way, shape, or form. And after a while, even just working at NBC, I was like, well, this is never happening for me. Like it just felt very, very, very like, hierarchy based, taking people years and years just to get just to produce their own segment on a news show. It took them 8 to 10 years. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time.
Who does?
No, I did not have the time. So I ended up so the job that I had at MSNBC, it was a contract position. So 1 year. That 1 year was coming to an end. There were no permanent jobs being offered my way. I was interviewing everywhere. Nothing was sticking. And I was like, okay, I do want to make sure that I have a job in media. Like I didn't do all this work to go then, literally no offense, but work, at a cafe or a coffee shop. I just wanted to make sure I was staying the course. And so I took a week off towards the end of my tenure at MSNBC. And I was like, I'm just going to go to LA and see if I can find a job. I did my research on LinkedIn. I got in contact with the person who was in charge of the internship and fellowship program at BuzzFeed. I was emailing, like, oh, I'm going to be here during these dates. I'd love to come in for an informational meeting. No one got back to me until my second to last day in LA. And I was I was sad. I was like, dang, because I had a couple other meetings, but this was the one that I really wanted. I really wanted to work at BuzzFeed. And so I ended up having a meeting my last day in LA at BuzzFeed. And I was really interested in the fellowship program. And he was like, I think that would be great. He was like, but generally the best trajectory is the internship to fellowship pipeline. Now, y'all know I had already been working in New York, okay? I was a full-time production assistant in news. Like, I was like, internship. You know, like the Soulja Boy Drake.
Yeah, Drake.
Like, I was like, internship. I'm like, okay, well, at this point, I don't really have a choice. Like, sure. If you're willing to, like, give me a shot, absolutely. So, ended up working out. I moved to LA for a 3-month internship. Like, that was all that was promised at that time.
Wow.
And that's when I moved to Azusa
Yeah.
into a random man's home.
I love it. You're like, oh yeah, it's LA County,
Yes,
I guess.
yes.
45 minutes away.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got here.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. And you know, you just kind of jumped right back into another competitive thing, because I don't think a lot of people realize that at BuzzFeed, like the internship and the fellowship was pretty cutthroat too.
Oh, yes.
You know, you're just learning on the fly of how to make a viral video. And I always tell people, like, especially in the fellowship, like you're with your cohort, but you're all competing there's only a handful of jobs for you, and you're going through your videos every single week and dissecting them, and people are giving notes on it and feedback, and you're like, your video's trash. What are you talking about?
And it's like, how many buttons do you have?
Yes.
Like,
do you remember that? Oh, we used to, like, if your video hit a certain benchmark every week, we would do this like ceremony where they would play like the old Chicago Bulls 90s like theme song, and they'd bring out, and you get a button for if you hit a certain views on your video, and then you would get a hoodie if
it got like 3 million in a week or something.
3 million in a week, and you get this hoodie, and it had like a corgi on it. It was the BuzzFeed logo. I never got a hoodie. I wanted one so bad.
I never did either. It was a big deal. Like, we took it seriously.
Oh, yeah. That was genius. It was a little culty, but it was genius.
It was.
It worked.
It really did.
That's the takeaway, is it works.
I randomly think about towards the end of the fellowship when they bring people in one by one to let you know if you got a full-time job or not. And you can see everyone going into a room, and you just look at their faces when they come out. And you had to, like...
Were you this was in DeLongpre, right?
Yes.
Were you in like the conference room at the top?
I was downstairs. I was like downstairs somehow.
I just remember, though, you could see the room that whenever the fellow was going in there and learning, that they either got a full-time job or they're out of a job.
Yeah.
And everybody could see it. It was the weirdest day at BuzzFeed.
Such a crazy day. I'm like, was that okay?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I'm still wrestling with it. I think it breeds greatness. I think and in a weird way, it prepared us for being in front of millions of people at a time, and being constantly critiqued and criticized and loved.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it's, I guess, public humiliation.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the job you're signing up for.
This is what it is.
Yeah. But everybody knew. That was the weird, and it was every 3 months.
Yeah, every 3 months. It was on a Friday.
Yeah.
And then people would either be like packing up their desks or not.
I remember when I was picked, the person before me went, and he came back, and he was crying. And he was like, I think you got it, man. And he's just crying at his desk. And I was worried. And then I went in to the office, and the guy who was leading the fellowship program looked like he had been hit by a truck. He looked like he was in pain.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I might just see if my job at Joe's Crab Shack is still available, because that's it for me.
Yeah.
And then, getting that job, it truly felt like winning the lottery.
It did. It was the best feeling.
It was the coolest job, and everybody that worked there was awesome.
Yeah.
It was the coolest group of people. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, because, you know, that job doesn't exist. And it didn't exist before we were there. It was like this weird moment in time.
It really was. It was, honestly, I always call it like the golden era of like the internet.
Yeah.
Like that period from like, I'll say like 2013 to like 2016.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have been a part of it.
Me too. It's such a unique experience. And being around that many creative people that were all around the same age, we're all going out on Friday nights and having a fun time. And you're also, you know, you're getting internet famous together. In a weird way, I always felt so much more connected to the people at BuzzFeed during that time than my own friends and family, because people couldn't relate with that, you know? How did you deal, like, once you started to pop a little bit and people knew all of a sudden who Freddie was, how did you deal with that?
You know what's so funny? Okay, I remember the day my followers jumped, and it wasn't because of like a video or anything. It was because I went to the beach with Quinta and we took a photo and she tagged me.
That's probably how I grew mine too.
I'm like, wait, what? Like, I was like, oh, this is crazy. And so, I mean, in terms of like how it affected just my life as I knew it, because it did change. I don't think it really affected the way like my friends and family like treated me, but being out with them was weird.
Yeah.
Right? Like when people would come and approach me, when we would be, it was really malls and like theme parks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Malls and theme parks are the two places. Like if you needed a little ego stroke, just go hit up the Glendale Galleria and you're just good.
Exactly. And so that always was interesting. Or even like at the time when I was like going on dates and stuff, like, and people would come up to me and I'd be like on a date with a guy for the first time and he'd be like confused.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, who are you? What's going on here?
Yeah. And it was never really like bad. It was just weird. And
we were at that like weird point of it where people knew who you were, but you know, it wasn't rich and famous. I'll tell you that. Right. And it was just, you know, going out there and making content every day to millions of people, you kind of get desensitized to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was strange. So, what's something, so at BuzzFeed, when did you get like pulled into Ladylike and all that stuff?
So I got pulled into Ladylike soon after I got offered the full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So that was at the end of 2015. Ladylike, I think, started in 2016, and that was when we moved to the new office.
And the vibes changed.
The vibes changed immediately.
Yeah. That was kind of the beginning of the end. I feel like it still went on, but that was, we hit the peak point. Absolutely. And it started to dip a little bit.
It started to dip. They were kind of just throwing stuff at the walls to see what stick. I remember it was Henry. Mm-hmm. Who was in charge of the unscripted department.
Henry Goldman.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, we want to make something for women. I'm like, okay, like what else? He's like, it's just girls.
That is unfortunately how a lot of like green lights happen.
Yeah. And he was like, figure it out. So like I started working with Chantel and who else was, I feel like Chantel was definitely like the lead.
She was like the ringleader, huh?
Yeah. And then it was me, and then it was a few other ladies. And we all just kind of like, I remember the very first video we did was called the Lipstick Olympics, which is so funny. Like, I'm like, wow, he said make something for ladies. And we're like, Lipstick Olympics.
You really went for it.
We really
it's
like
the most BuzzFeed thing for women. That's so good.
Exactly. And so it ended up doing relatively well, and it became kind of like this rotating cast of ladies just trying shit. And we finally, I mean, there were a few people who left, few people who came in. And after a while, we ended up settling on Chantel, myself, Jen, Kristen, and Devin.
Yeah.
And we all just meshed really well. We were diverse as fuck. Like, we really were in terms of just interests and hobbies and aesthetics and body types and all those things. And we just we went hard. We were like, this is going to be something. And then we ended up getting our own YouTube channel underneath the BuzzFeed umbrella. And then that ended up skyrocketing. And I think that's really when I noticed that a lot of girls coming up to us and being like, you made my summer so much easier. You made high school so much easier. I mean, honestly, I was in Malibu last weekend at a restaurant. And I mean, it's hard because it makes me feel very old. But one of the hostess was like, you were my entire childhood.
You're like, please don't.
But she was just like, you guys made me feel so confident. Anytime I was feeling down, like I would watch your videos, and like that kind of stuff just makes me really emotional and really makes me feel like the work that I was doing, it was way deeper than being internet famous, you know? It was way, way deeper.
That is such a weird feeling when you kind of see the actual impact that you have on someone's life.
Yeah.
I remember having that for people. And, you know, for me, like I grew up always wanting to be, you know, I went through some stuff as a kid and I was alone a lot. And I always looked at, you know, TV or even early YouTube to kind of like help me get through some things. And that was honestly the genesis of me wanting to make comedy and get out there and be, you know, someone that could help, you know, if it's for 30 minutes out of the day where you don't have to worry about the stresses in your life and you can just focus on that, that's great. And I remember when people came up to me and said that kind of message, it felt fake. It felt like there's no possible way that I'm doing that as well to you. But it's a strange feeling doing that because you're just so used to seeing a number.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're getting a button for a million people
exactly.
views and you're like, that's a million people.
Yeah.
Watch that. That's truly insane. Okay. So were you always a like creative kid, a creative person, or is it something you grew into? I'm curious about that.
I wish that I had photos of all the furniture in my room because it was drawn all over. When I tell you, because I grew up an only child.
Mm-hmm.
I have an older brother, but he's much older, 17 years older than me.
My sister's 15 years older than me. And so I had the exact same dilemma.
Huge age gap. So I was just like on my own for the most part and like just in my brain, like using my imagination, drawing on stuff all the time. I loved performing arts. Like my mom had me in performing arts as a kid. So like singing, acting, dancing, I was modeling. I did a few commercials as a kid. So I want to see if I can find my headshot from when I was 4 years old and send it to you.
The fact that you have a headshot at 4, we need it. The world needs it. We got to see this.
Yeah, my mom, so I grew up in Virginia.
Okay.
My mom drove me up to Philly.
Oh my gosh.
For like an audition and like headshot moment. I remember this. And I'm like, wow, my mom was really like, she was dedicated to like taking me where I wanted to go. Cause I was just always singing and dancing around the house and that kind of thing. And so I will say that I was always creative. I think that I kind of moved out of that though once I got towards like middle school.
Right. I feel like that is the time when you start looking around and it's like being different is weird and you just kind of have to like what are the cool kids doing?
Exactly.
I need to fit in that.
And so I kind of just like leaned more into sports.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I was a tennis girly.
Let's go.
I was a soccer girly. In high school.
She can do it all.
In high school, I did cheerleading. And I did do, oh my gosh, I told the story on BuzzFeed already, but I'll just tell it really quickly.
Please.
I did lean back into performing arts towards the end of high school and I decided it's senior year, fuck it, let's just go for it. And I auditioned for the musical The Wiz that we did. And I auditioned for obviously like Dorothy.
Yeah, you have to.
The role that I got was one of the bricks on the yellow brick road.
Honestly, I thought you were even going Toto.
No,
a brick?
A brick, an actual brick. It was cute. Like we were like dancing. Like we were like the interlude between.
Yeah.
It was cute, but I'm like, that's.
You're like, I came for Dorothy and I got a brick.
And I got a brick.
And she's literally walking all over me.
Yeah.
That is.
To be fair, there were people who had been doing theater from freshman year.
100%.
You know, I came in senior year. Yeah, they paid their dues. I came in senior year trying to like audition for Dorothy. How dare I?
But that was the beginning of your villain origin story.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
Like, I'm going to turn this into something.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say all in all, I've been like a creative girly.
What did you study in school?
Radio, TV, and film.
Nice.
Yeah, with a concentration in TV production, a minor in photography.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I wanted to be in media. Like I knew I did a project senior year of high school where I like made a documentary for my senior project.
Cool.
And I was like, wait, I loved this. I loved editing. I loved doing the interviews. And so like documentary filmmaking was like what I was most passionate about going into college.
That's awesome. Cause a lot of the stuff you did at BuzzFeed was like the unscripted side of it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So when did music, you said earlier that music has always sort of been a part of you. And I think that's something that I picked up on you from the jump. I feel like you're someone that always has the aux cord when those were things.
Yes.
But I like, even like when we'd have like those kind of BuzzFeed after parties, it was either you or Quinta on it. And probably during that era, that stretch, I probably owe a lot of my musical taste to
Oh
both
my
of you
God.
guys. Like during that time, I'm like, hey, let's go.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the first things Quinta and I bonded over was like music. And
Yeah.
we were always like going out at night and loved the same parties. And I remember one time she threw a Neptune's party.
And you're
And
from Virginia.
Yes. And so I was so excited for it. And basically it was just only music was played that was produced by the Neptunes.
Where was I?
I know. I'm like,
this invite?
I told her recently, I saw her the other day. I'm like, you got to run that party back.
Yeah.
Because it was so much fun. But yeah, I would say music has always been a passion of mine. Like my mom was always, my mom's like a little older. So I grew up like straight Motown.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so Stevie Wonder, like Earth, Wind & Fire is my favorite group of all time.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, Diana Ross and like all of those people. And so that's just like, it's in my bones.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never really like, I don't know if I ever considered myself like, I knew that I like was good with the aux cord in like public settings, but I never thought that like my taste was any better or different than other people's until I really started DJing. Like my song selection and like, it's so funny. I laugh at myself because like I always veer from songs that are overplayed or that are too mainstream. So my sets are like can get a little niche.
That's good though.
Yeah. So I really love and appreciate music, and I hope to one day soon start to like produce my own music.
Let's
too.
go.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. When was that sort of switch in your brain when you were like, I'm gonna try DJing sort of full time? When was Mini Skrrt born?
So Mini Skrrt was born in 2022. I've always been intrigued by DJing. I've had a lot of friends that are DJs, also mostly introduced at the beginning by Quinta, right? And so they've always said like, oh, you should give it a shot. But like the thing with DJing is like, you can't really give it a shot without buying the equipment. You know,
right.
like
Yeah.
You can like, I've always like tinkered around and played at my friends' homes who have equipment, but you can't really like fine tune and really learn unless you have like the equipment at home. You're locked in, you're spending hours on YouTube figuring it out. And so I never took it seriously. And then my boyfriend bought me a controller for Christmas.
Hey, there you go.
In 2021. And I was like, okay, great. This is just going to be a hobby. Like because I have stage fright.
You do?
People like to say, what? You have stage fright? You're on camera all the time. Being in front of a group of people, IRL, is so different from being in front of a camera. Like, It's so different for me. Like, I get so clammy. I get so, like, nervous. I start to stumble over my words. And so the idea of, like, playing music in front of people that I don't know is, like, scary. So I was like, no, this is just a hobby.
Yeah.
So I was playing around at home, learning like stuff here and there. And then my friend Rabbit, he messages me and he's like, oh yeah, I'm throwing a party. I'm going to throw you on the flyer. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet. This was in March. I got my controller in December.
Oh yeah.
I was like, wait, no, I'm not like ready. I've just been like playing around here and there. And he's like, okay, you'll do a 30-minute set.
30 minutes.
It felt like eternity.
Yeah, I bet.
I was like, excuse me? And my boyfriend was like, you should just do it. Like, you may like it. He was like, worst case scenario, it's not good, but it's all mostly people that you know. It's fine. And so I did my little, and it was at the park. It wasn't at like a venue or anything. So it was really chill. Like it was chill vibes. I did my little 30-minute set. There was a lot of Ariana Grande in there. And I loved it. I got such a rush. I was like, oh, this is so much fun. Like, I can't believe it. And then I just started being put on more flyers. And also at the time, okay, let's back up. Simultaneously, when this was happening, my brand deals were slowing down.
Okay.
A lot. I had a lot of free time to just like be at home and sulk about my brand deals being slow. And I was like, well, why don't I just lean and put that energy into DJing instead of being sad at home?
Sure.
So that's literally why I started DJing, because it was getting me out of the house, and it was giving me something to do, like putting together set lists and stuff at home instead of being sad about brand deals slowing down. So that's really how DJing became more of like a full-time thing.
That's interesting. Like knowing, because, you know, obviously knowing you, but then just seeing you on Instagram, like I didn't pick that up. So that's good. I didn't pick that up.
Great.
And just seeing like, oh, Freddie's going to try this now, but also it wasn't shocking. You know, like I said, like you've always been good at that, and
Thank
you have like
you.
a swagger to you that is just like, yeah, she could be a DJ. Why not? And so thrown into the deep end of DJing, was that probably the best thing for you?
I wouldn't take it back for anything. It was so good for me. And it was also, I realized that, okay, so my brand deals were slowing down, but I will also say that like part of getting brand deals is being really consistent with content regardless of what deals you have. So like just being consistent with your lifestyle content, makeup content, beauty stuff, like whatever that is, you just have to be consistent in general. And I just like wasn't feeling it and just was like fatigued from living my life online.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that had something to do with just like, I mean, amongst other things, but I realized that there was like a huge hole that I needed to fill, and it was that in-person human connection that I was missing from all those years of just like being on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so like being able to touch people and being able to like see people dance or like turn around when they hear me play a certain song, like in real life, or people coming up to me in real life and saying like, oh, this is my shit. Like, thank you for playing this. Like, I'm like, this is actually like what I was missing, like this in-person real connection. And then like that kind of segued into just like, okay, so I love DJing. I love DJing events, but I also miss producing. And so like event production is like the perfect spot for me. Like I feel like that's where I feel the most alive, is like event production, curating vibes. I just love to curate a vibe.
Yeah, you're a vibe curator. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds just perfect for you. Perfect for you. I totally relate what you're saying. Like being a content creator, I don't think people realize how lonely it is, because it's just a lot of times it's just you and you're posting it, and then you're just seeing these numbers and you're deciding if these numbers are good or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
Repeat.
And you can have 50,000 likes on something, but having 100 people be like cheering for you. I would take the 100 people any day.
Exactly.
Any day.
It's such a different feeling that I didn't realize I was missing. I knew that I wasn't feeling into the internet content creation just by itself for a while. I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't bring myself to like pull out the camera, you know? But after I started DJing, I was like, oh, that's why.
That makes sense. Where was your mental health like during that time with the brand deals falling? Were you, because it's like we're coming out of the pandemic also during that time. For me personally, it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
It was needed, but rough.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I think that's something that a lot of creatives go through. They go through that, especially if you find success. I know like a lot of people might not want to hear it, but once you sort of like have this success that you're going, you're like, okay, I'm doing this thing. And then once it stops, I mean, that's really hard to wrestle with, especially when your identity is kind of wrapped up in that.
Absolutely.
How were you during that time?
I was low. I mean, so I will say like in 2021, I ended up being fortunate enough to be able to buy a home. So with that, I was like, okay, well, I got to keep the money coming. Like, I have a mortgage. Like, I can't like fuck around. And so when the brand deals started to dry up, and like when I felt like my team, also too, let me circle back too, because my team, remember I mentioned that I had like a manager and like an agent and stuff. Like, my manager was not really on board with my DJ pivot. She just kept saying it was outside of her wheelhouse and that she just didn't know what to do with me anymore. They had been with me for about 4 years. Like, we had been rocking together since I left BuzzFeed. And I'm so grateful for them. They made me a lot of money. Like, they made me a lot of money, and I was so happy. And, but one of the things that I did feel like fell flat was that she told me she was willing to grow with me. And like, support me along the way. And when I pivoted to DJing, it was really radio silence. I mean, and when I say radio silence, she didn't even come see me play once. Like I had been DJing for a year, I think, at the point when I decided to part ways with her, and she hadn't come see me at all. And she was managing other musicians. Like, it's not like music was so out of her wheelhouse that like it was, I don't know what it was, but when you pivot to something new, all you have is your own confidence and then like the support of your team. And when I didn't have the support of my team, I was like, damn, am I making the wrong move? Like, is this not what I should be doing? Like, is it silly for me to think that I can be a DJ? Like, I started to get really self-conscious, and so that messed with my mental health a lot. And that's when I realized that I had to part ways professionally with them, because I only needed like support. Like I only needed people who were like 10 toes down, mini skirt, like you got this, like you're the best DJ in the land. Like I needed that in my ear in order to really like feel like I could be successful in this space, and I didn't have that. So, but once I kind of was on my own, I actually started to feel better about my trajectory. And also because I love DJing. Like it was such a fun thing for me. It never feels like work. It always feels like vibes. And that's how I want to live my life.
That's how we should all live our life, right? Just chase the vibes.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated, and this kind of goes into mini skirt, but you, and I mean, you're talking about brand deals and everything, but I think you are one of the best people that I know that's building a brand as yourself. And I think we're in that age of like the creator-led brands. You have like whatever Mr. Beast is doing.
Yeah.
Like, these
whatever
people,
Mr. Beast is
whatever
doing.
they're doing. Wish that was around 10 years ago. But I'm curious about like having a brand that is you, right? Like you are mini skirt, and I think you have this consistency across everything that you're doing. Like I said, I've never seen you play. I've seen videos and stuff, and I think you're awesome and you carry this energy for you. But like I guess like this is kind of more of a general question for anybody out there like that is a creator of creating a brand. How do you do that? I mean, I guess that's a kind of hard question to ask, but I guess what is your process like of crafting that?
So I think I'm still figuring that out. Like so I like to say like there's two umbrellas. There's the Freddie umbrella, which is truly just myself as a personality and brand that I've built since BuzzFeed. And then Mini Skirt is my DJ moniker and my DJ brand. And sometimes it's hard to figure out the balance between the two, or if people get confused, or like even like down to something as trivial as like my Instagram handles, right? It's like, when I'm playing a party and people are tagging me, it says Mini Skirt on the flyer, but it says Freddie in my handle, and most people's is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I don't feel too stressed about it, because I do feel like I'm trying to be more vocal about the difference between the two, especially even on like TikTok, right? Like TikTok, my handle is DJ Mini Skirt.
Okay.
So, and then on Instagram, it's Freddie. And Mini Skirt feels good and authentic because it is the direction that I want to go into in regards to my career. So like, my friend Claudia came up with the name actually because she noticed. Yes, shout out to Claudia because she realized that I had a robust mini skirt collection. You guys, I have like so many mini skirts in my closet, and I love a mini skirt. And so she told me that should be my name and like how I should spell it. And I'm like, that's incredible. But mind you, this was in February before I even got did that park gig. Like,
so you already had the name.
So
You're already building the brand.
Yeah, I was already building the brand. And I really love fashion and I love music. And like my dream is to be a DJ really in the fashion space. Like going to Fashion Week this year was something that I've been manifesting for so long. Even when I was getting like a bunch of brand deals and I was like really popping at it at one time, like I could never make it to Fashion Week and I couldn't figure out why. And I think partly it's because like fashion content wasn't like the crux of my branding, but it was really where I wanted to be. Like I knew that I just like loved fashion, but I guess other people just weren't as hip to it in terms of like people who would hire me for things. And so I've just been like, so I would tweet like, okay, I'm going to go to Fashion Week this year, manifestation tweet. Fashion Week would come and go. Narrator, she did not make it to Fashion Week that year. Like that was every year. And so this year, I finally got to go and play parties for Fashion Week. And I got styled by a brand for free for the whole week. And I was like, this is like, I feel like you really have to make, even if you don't currently have it, you have to make your branding where you want to be. So like mini skirt being like obviously an item of clothing, but also descriptive of myself in the DJ space. And then also being intentional about like posting more outfits and like posting more fashion content. Like all of these things I do feel like led me to Fashion Week. And I'm really praying and hoping that I can continue on this trajectory. But branding really is, I just think, like one big like manifestation exercise per se.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, fashion has always been something, like I said earlier, like you came in wearing the throwback jersey and like you're always throwing fits. And like you have
Throwing
that.
fits.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to like get that one off. I'm just like,
It was great.
Thank you. I'm trying. That was the first time I think I said it out loud, but yeah, no, you have that. So what is fashion to you? Just like an expression of yourself? Like what is that? Have you always been fashionable? Is that a terrible question? Have you always been fashionable?
It's so funny because like, no. Like when I look back at old pictures, I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Anything like 2010,
yeah,
I'm like, get me out of here.
Like business casual at the club. Like what's happening? But like I've always cared about it a lot. And I think I've always had a style. Like I've always had like my own, like an aesthetic per se. I think it's gotten way better the older I've gotten. I feel like I've come into myself so much more. And I love, it is expression. It is expression for me. Like I feel so confident when I know that I'm throwing a fit. Like when I know that I'm like pulling up and I'm like, oh yeah, I did good. You know, like it really is just like a confidence booster for myself. And it's funny because when I started to be able to afford like more labels, right, and designers, I did it for a second, right? And then I realized like, wait, I don't feel more fashionable in this. Like it's cute, like it's a label that I can like tag on Instagram so that maybe they'll hire me for a gig. But like it's not, I didn't feel more stylish. So I think there's been like an interesting journey even with just like my financial ebbs and flows of like what actually makes me look and feel good that isn't what everyone's wearing or like super expensive designer, but also like not what I was wearing 5-6 years ago just from like a Zara.
Yeah.
Shout out Zara. I love Zara. I was there last week. But like, you know, really just figuring out like, I would say that like my style truly is like a mesh of a little bit of designer, vintage, sports.
Yeah.
And sneakers. Like I love mixing high-low. I love femme mask. Like I love a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
You know?
You might be my style icon, honestly. Maybe like half my inspiration.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
yeah.
Thanks.
I mean,
honestly though, you too. Like you don't sell yourself short.
I try.
Your sneaker game has always been chef's kiss.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. There's the clip right there. We're going to put that one out there for my own personal Instagram. You have a podcast called Money Honeys with Chantel and Devin. Where did that come from? When I saw that you guys were doing that, I thought that was really cool. Can you just kind of like explain to our audience, I guess, talk about a podcast on a podcast?
Yeah. So Money Honeys is like a financial wellness podcast that I co-host with two of my former Ladylike cast members, Chantel and Devin. And we started a couple years ago, actually. And we all, the three of us have always like bonded over money in a way of like, how can we be smart? Chantel is she? I would say she was one of the youngest members of Ladylike, but she's so mature and like so on top of her shit and like bought a house in 2016 when she was like 24, 25.
I remember that. And
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, we're buying houses now?
Exactly.
I think I was still in a 2-bedroom with 3 other guys.
That's literally what I said. Oh, we're buying homes now. Got it. And so I've always just like wanted to pick her brain. Like, how did you do that? Like, how do you budget? And like, I've just always been very interested in trying to take control of my own financial situation, but never really knowing how or knowing the steps. And so we did a few Ladylike videos around finances during our time at BuzzFeed. And they never like did great on the internet.
Right.
But like I learned so much. And like I was always like, oh wow, like this is something that I would love to like explore more. And then I would start to do more research on my own. And so when we like toyed with the idea of having a podcast, we were like, okay, it needs to be something specific, right? Like we didn't want it to be like Ladylike, where it was just kind of like a free-for-all, which worked. It works in the video landscape to kind of just try different things and kind of not have like a focus. But with podcasts, I feel like you need to have a bit of a focus, especially when there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And so we decided to like lean into finances, and we are actually under the Revolt umbrella now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so they are helping us with just like distribution and production and ad buys and that kind of thing. And so we're still like, we're probably about like 6 months, 7 months into like our relaunch under the new umbrella, but it's been great. I mean, we've tackled everything from how do you buy a house to how to budget to, you know, even like coming up on the election, like the child care tax, the home buying crisis right now, like everything. We try to keep everything super current events and just also like very current. And we try to make sure that we're just like putting people on in a relatable, accessible way.
100%. Because I feel like maybe 99% of financial podcasts are
white dudes.
Yeah. I was just going to say, are meant for like my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm lost. So I can't imagine how anybody else. That's so cool. Anytime I see one of your guys' clips, I watch it. I'm like, oh, this is good for us. I put Morgan onto it. I'm like, you gotta, we gotta get our money right, and we need to learn these things because they don't teach it in school. I mean, it's the biggest. Like, what are we doing here? It's on purpose. At this point, it has to be because like we're just like all financially illiterate. But
and they make money off of that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. I get it, but your time is over.
It's done.
But no, I think that was such a cool thing. What, like, I guess, do you have like, do you like the podcast space? Like, do you like doing them? Once again, I know this is weird being on a podcast talking about it, but I'm just curious as a friend.
I do like doing them. I feel like it's a nice, kind of circling back to what I was saying before, like, leaning into not picking one discipline has been sort of a mode of operation that I've been trying to work out of. And so I feel like when I'm DJing a party one night and then I have to record the financial podcast the next day, I'm like, wow, she's a jack of all trades.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I think that is what I'm picking up the most from this conversation is just how much of a multi-hyphenate you are. And not even in like the J-Lo sense, but like maybe that too. But like all these different interests that you have. I think it's so easy. I mean, especially when we going back to the BuzzFeed thing, we were kind of like locked into our narrative through the company of what we're going to be. And anytime you tried something new and it didn't perform, we were discouraged from it.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is what's so freeing about this conversation is just knowing that like, you don't have to pick one thing and stick to it. You can't have multiple interests because that's what humans are. We all have multiple sides of ourselves, and being able to do that professionally, I think is incredibly inspiring.
It's so funny. I've also like gotten myself into graphic design. I'm like helping people with a logo. You know, I'm just doing all kinds of things. Like I'm trying And that also feeds me. Like, I'm learning, like, I'm really getting deep into Illustrator and like learning like all those things. Because at BuzzFeed, like, it was very much like Adobe Premiere, maybe a little After Effects, like if we wanted to get fancy schmancy. But like, there's so many other programs and outlets that have been untapped for me. And so a lot of my downtime as a freelancer has been just like seeing, okay, what else am I like interested in learning that I can build my own skill set in and potentially like find new avenues to make money.
Yeah.
Circling back to Money Honeys.
I mean, I got completely into graphic design. I mean, I was getting hired as a creative director with them being like, oh, I'm the design guy there. And I'm like, I learned how to do this by designing thumbnails at BuzzFeed.
At BuzzFeed, yes.
Because, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, we had to do literally everything on the job, from concepting the video to shooting, editing, coloring it sometimes, making the thumbnail, publishing it.
I forgot about the thumbnails.
Thumbnails. And those
were big, like,
yeah.
That's what drove your video.
You remember you had to like submit at least three and the executive producers would decide like which and kind of give you notes on that. I've weirdly, since we're doing this on YouTube, and this is like the first time I'm uploading to YouTube again, like since I was an intern at BuzzFeed, really. I wasn't, because I never really posted on YouTube afterwards. I just wasn't interested in it. But yeah, going through that now and designing thumbnails, my that side of my brain is like kicking back in. I'm like, how do I do this?
How does that feel?
What's the frame here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been super weird, but and very great. I love YouTube as a platform.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. I guess that's a great segue. What is your relationship with the internet like now? Because I guess we said that we're pretty much 10 years in from the moving out to LA, riding the BuzzFeed wave, having your own brand deals, being in the podcast space, being a DJ. Like what is that relationship with the internet?
My relationship with the internet now, I might be a little, what is the best word to describe it? I'm not as deep in it as I used to be. And I think that it's like purposeful. I think that I stick to my platforms that I kind of do check regularly, which is Instagram. Does that mean I'm a millennial? Because
I know
TikTok isn't the first one I go to.
Same. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And then I kind of just like hop off. Like I might be a little jaded from it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I think I might be a little jaded from it. Also, because of like the algorithm shifts across all the platforms have just made it so hard for people to even see your shit or see your content. Like, I'm just like, I'm not fooling with y'all. Like, y'all just, you keep making changes. I'm not going to try to like figure you out every month.
Yeah. Because it really does change every month. The game changes. And I mean, that was something like at BuzzFeed, we were always studying like what's working.
What's
and
the new landscape.
I feel like people don't realize, because you were joking, it was like you learned so much there. I always say that I got my master's degree like in the internet, but also in people and how people think and psychology. Because we would have those brainstorms once a week where you're breaking a title of a YouTube video down to the description in the word. Like, are we going to use the word odd or the word weird?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
What's going to get more clicks?
Yeah. And looking through the comments and trying to find the share statements of like, what are people saying when they share your video? That was such a weird thing, but it was so scientific that I don't think people realized that like that's kind of what the secret sauce was for those videos. And I've definitely have carried that to me in other jobs and even doing this. I don't think you can ever shake it, but I hear you with being a little jaded on the platforms. There's a part of me sometimes I kind of just envy like my friends from back home with, you know, they're just on their posting their kids on their Instagram. I'm like,
it's just like, that's great. So freeing.
Yeah. Wow. What's it like not for this to be your job and obsessed with it?
Yeah. But I will say, the way that I think about content on the internet, the way that we think about content on the internet, I think does give us a leg up when it comes to doing work for social medias for other companies and being on the internet for other entities and like really helping other businesses and brands find their footing, you know? Because that's been cool too. Like I've done a little bit of that. Like helping brands who are like babies and like don't have a following yet really figure out what their voice is, you know, on the internet has been cool to kind of share that knowledge that we learned.
What's like, I guess let's do a little exercise here.
Yeah.
What's a takeaway from BuzzFeed that is kind of like your go-to that when you're like consulting for a brand that you give? Do you have something?
Oh my gosh. Let me think. Because Instagram, like social media pages are different from YouTube, right?
For sure.
So I think that, I mean, here's one. I think kind of like what you were saying with comments, like combing through every single comment is extremely important, even if you don't want to do it, because you learn so much.
You learn so much.
Yeah.
You know who the audience is, right? And they always are saying like, I just had, a couple episodes ago, we had this guy, Daniel Allen, and he was going through and talking about how create for people, not the algorithm. And I think like when you are seeing those comments, you are seeing the people of there. And it's so important to know those so you're not just shouting into a void.
Absolutely. I even think thumbnails too is a thing. Like even when you think about Instagram Reels and how there is a thumbnail and people will just upload the video and it'll be a still from the video. It's like, no. You need to like make a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Or like you need to have a photo that you took that will be just for the thumbnail.
Yep.
Like there's like there's certain things that people are going to pay attention to that you're not realizing unless you've like been doing it.
100%. That's so good. In today's world, do you think if someone's a creative person, right? If someone's an artist, do you think they have to be a content creator? Stumped you.
I think if you're a new artist, yes. I think if you've been around, no. Like
Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean. That's literally what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's not on anything.
He used
to be on
anything.
Tumblr.
Yeah,
he did.
He did. Yeah, like Frank Ocean's not on anything. There's a few artists who, like I'm thinking about like who came out around that time, like literally like the 2010, early 2010, 2011. Like I'm like, does J. Cole even post really? Maybe here and there.
All those like blog rappers.
Yeah, the blog rappers.
Huge.
Yeah.
I think too, like with like mixtape culture used to be so big, like Dat Piff and everything. Like it was that old social media where you were just following along and because I remember J. Cole, all that.
Big Sean.
The early Drake stuff.
Yeah.
Finally Famous, like all those like mixtapes. Love it.
You were Golden era.
Golden era. I miss it.
Yeah, so I guess that was like content creating at the time. Like, was that? Would you consider that content? I mean, it was more so like using a platform to promote.
Yeah. But I think of someone like Drake, right? Like Drake is a genius at the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a couple down months, but he'll come back. But that was sort of like the new wave of all those people who knew how to use a moment to capitalize or reference memes even in their music. And I think that's why I loved it so much and why I connected with it, because I'm like, oh, we're all children of the internet and we're getting this music fed to us where, at least for me too, it's very like relatable to me personally, where I'm like, okay, cool. I'm from here where it's like I'm a huge Jay-Z fan, but I obviously know I can't relate to him on the come up and I can't relate to him now.
Right, exactly.
Like there is zero anything, but I love the artistry of it. But there was something about that like content creator where I felt like I knew these people. I feel like vlogs were starting to get bigger with artists and things. And so I guess they were content creators.
Yeah.
Do you like the word content creator?
Like it makes me laugh. It makes me chuckle, especially when you're thinking about it from like a big music artist standpoint, right? So like when you think about Beyonce and Rihanna and their different relationships with the internet, right? It's like, because a lot of these artists who do feel like they need to like promote on the internet, which I actually do think it's important because it does just like increase relatability and likability. I feel like 20, 30 years ago, like your audience was your audience because of your music and your craft, not because they knew what your personality was.
Right.
And now people crave to know what your personality is like. And I think Beyonce got that feedback and was like, okay, I'm gonna post y'all. I'll post. And so she posts like at 12 a.m. her like little like carousels of her outfits. And I think people really do appreciate it and love it, but it is calculated and curated. And I'm sure she has a social media person who does it for her.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm not like, but I just think it's important. They're two really big artists who don't need to post, but they do because of the landscape. And like Rihanna, she posts a little less now, but like even, videos of her and Rocky, like when she was rapping Glorilla.
We all want to see that.
Yeah, like we all want to see that.
Yeah.
We all want to see that.
I want to know the dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is a Tuesday night look for you guys?
Exactly.
That's what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Do you think it's good though? Like, do you think it's good? Because there's something about with Beyonce, right? She's so larger than life. I mean, we saw her at the Rose Bowl. Morgan was crying the whole time, and I was like, I was kind of tearing up even. And I was like, oh shit, this is like Lemonade era.
Oh
like,
yeah,
loved that, and it's sort of that's what an icon is, I guess. Like it's someone that is so big, they're untouchable, but yet the internet and social media, it's kind of the opposite. Like I'm letting you into my home.
Yeah.
Like anytime, like even like I know what your home kind of looks like just from your Instagram, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a weird thing for an icon. Is that good? Is it good to be relatable? Is it good to be removed? I'm not sure.
The thing is, like, I get why she's so protective, and I understand why she's guarded in a way of like, I'm not really trying to like showcase me and Jay-Z kikiing at the crib. Like, would we love to see that? Yes.
Yeah. Give me 12 seasons of that show.
Yes. But like, that does just open you up to criticism, and it opens you up to opinions, and it opens you up to like all these kinds of things that she probably doesn't have the bandwidth to even deal with. Like she's got 3 kids that she has to, make sure are living a they're never going to live normal lives.
Yeah.
But like,
as best they can.
Yeah, as best they can. Like there's a lot of things that I'm sure she's just more focused on. But I will say like and I'm wondering like maybe in like 10 years, maybe she'll just be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And start to just like show us.
I'm ready for that era.
Yeah.
I think it's really weird with those people, Beyonce, we've grown up with our entire life. She's been famous since she was a kid.
Yeah.
And I think the same way with like the Justin Timberlakes and like all that like era of people. And now we're hitting the point where I'm like, oh damn, they're kind of washed now. They're kind of old. It's weird. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It just is mortality looking me dead in the face. But I am, I guess, kind of ready for that era. Of just seeing more of these people. Just an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Not even on my notes here.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
no, it is interesting, and the idea of like content creation as someone who doesn't need to do it but feels like it keeps them relevant, especially if you're like if you have like multiple businesses, right? Like she has Skrrt, she has Sir Davis, she has like all of these other side businesses that she does have to figure out a way to promote and like get people interested and like grab people with like the imagery and like the storytelling behind it. Like, billboards and stuff, that's the internet now.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's the, I heard someone coin this phrase where it's like, it's the attention market. Like every kind of creator, that's why so many brands like back these creators. It's just because it's attention they're buying. And I think there's a slippery slope when that is the game and everybody knows that. And you're not just making, content or videos or posts, whatever you're doing for the fun of it, the joy of it. It's you're kind of just trying to play the game of it. I think that's when it gets so watered down. That's creating for the algorithm, right?
Yeah, it's creating for the algorithm. It starts to make it makes things less fun. It makes the internet less fun.
Yeah.
Just being so calculated with every single move, beating the algorithm, making sure the right people see it, figuring out what the best time to post is, what's the best day. What like only a few people saw my story. Why? It's crazy. The internet's a crazy place. Grateful for it. It's gotten us what I do love about the internet is that it really does increase visibility for people who may not otherwise have access, right?
100%.
You know, all the stories of people just like posting their work on Twitter and then getting, you know, hired by Vogue because of their photography, you know, stuff like that. And they're like from like a small town in like Alabama, you know, like that. Those are the kind of stories that really makes me love and appreciate the internet and giving people access to these larger than life brands that can really push them forward career-wise.
I couldn't agree more. I think there was something weird about when we were at BuzzFeed where the internet was still kind of like the little brother of like traditional, and seeing how much it's shifted. I feel like we've probably been across like 5 different waves of like the internet is now like TV on the internet. It's all going to merge together. And now it really, we wake up and we're in that. We've gone through all the, you remember like Go 90 when like BuzzFeed had like that deal with Go 90 and like all that stuff. And then there was like the Quibi and all that stuff. But, and there's going to be a new one probably tomorrow that comes out. But yeah, we're in such strange times. That's why I'm just so passionate about, you know, talking with people like you who, you know, you are wearing so many different hats and you're being in these, you know, different genres and you get to be all the different sides of you on that. I just really admire that because I think that's the way that as a creator has to kind of live today, you know?
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you. It's really fun. It's really rewarding when it works. It can be discouraging when things don't quite stick the way that you thought they would. But sometimes, you know, I think about kind of like mortality, what you were saying, or just the idea of like being an adult and like what that even means. But being able to play in a creative space makes me feel like a kid, and it makes me feel like I'm not losing myself in like the hustle and bustle of being an adult. Like, not that creativity has an age, but there's so many adults who don't have the bandwidth to be creative, even if they are at heart. Like, there's bills to pay, there's children to take care of, there's like all these other things to like focus on, and you lose that piece of yourself. So I feel happy and grateful that I can still play in the creative space, and I hope that I never stop playing.
Please never stop playing.
Yeah.
We'll wrap this up, but I am curious, like with I guess this career thus far. I'm saying thus a lot on the podcast lately. It's just my new word. But I guess what is the biggest lesson or lessons that you've learned as you've sort of pivoted your way through all these different avenues?
Don't be afraid of being humbled. Like, I feel like being humbled is kind of like a negative connotation, but I think that it's a way to stay sharp. It's a way to stay sharp. It's a way to remember that like everyone starts somewhere. And I know that like even myself, like becoming a DJ at 32 years old, like I was like, are people like looking at me like, what
is she okay?
Yeah. Like, what is she doing? But like, I think just being open to new things and trying new things, and it's okay to like circle back to like a humbling trajectory, right? So like, you know, becoming a DJ, like being a new DJ at 32, I had already been on BuzzFeed, I'd already gained a following, I'd already been doing all these brand deals. That's a totally different space. DJing and music, completely unrelated. People don't give a fuck. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. Like, me reaching out, asking for a chance to open when no one is there, begging to open for an event when no one is there. I was like, wow, this is
different.
This is different. This is new. But like, I feel like I've become a better person overall just from doing that, because don't get comfortable. It's like, anything can change. Anything can shift. God forbid there's another, you know, world crisis and we all have to go back home, or there's something else that happens. Like, you're always going to be evolving. You're always going to be having to pivot. Like, I know that this isn't the first time I'm going to have to pivot. And, you know, I even think about like, I want a family. Are people going to look at me crazy if I'm DJing at 2 a.m. with a baby at home? You know what I mean? Like, probably, but that's okay. Because like, I know my story. I know my trajectory. I know where I'm going. And like, the club just happens to be my office. But it's no different from you going to the office downtown at like, a loft or something like that during the day. It's just all based on whatever craft you choose to go. But it's okay to be humbled. Like, don't be afraid of it.
That's so good. I've been humbled.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I do love you have to, I guess this is what I'm learning is I'm getting older, is you do have to reinvent yourself so many times. And like you said, like this is just like maybe the second or third time I've had to do it as an adult, and I'm going to have to continue to do it. And
yeah.
I think luckily creatives, we have the tools to do it. You just have to kind of step out and do it.
Yeah. And be okay with failure. Be okay with like someone telling you no, and just literally keep going, because what else are we here for if not to just figure out our full potential?
100%. Like, you get one life.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Freddie, this has been the best conversation. I feel like this could have been on a podcast recorded or just over drinks or something.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for coming on here. Check out Mini Skrrt. And yeah, this has been the Create.Repeat podcast. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thank you for having me, Zach.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we did it!
Disconnected but doing what I was called to do. In tune, tuned in full pursuit. And I've seen what karma can do. So do good and let that good come back to you.